I'm Thomas A. Bradley, award-winning horror author, and welcome to episode 3 of Sundown Rising, a short novella that I've been reading, and it's a ghost story with a twist. Um, if any of you had caught the last episode, when I went back to watch it, it was kind of amusing, the very beginning of that. What had happened was I thought, let me switch over to YouTube and see what it actually looks like coming through. Not being the technical wizard that I should be, I switched over and it was still on the countdown. I thought, oh, what's going on? So I went back to the studio, and of course, I'm looking at the buttons. And on YouTube, you see that as me leaning in, looking like I'm trying to see out of the screen because I didn't realize there's a 19-second delay. So I'm looking out at the screen, this is not Pixan. Hi, how you doing? I see Johnny and I see Billy and there's Jane over there. That was all my faux pas. So you live and you learn. And with that out of the way, the only thing else I have to say is that I'm not going to do recaps, as all these videos are going to be available if you need to catch up or whatever. So I'm just going to pick up right from where I left off last time, and we'll see what's going on. It was the heavy pounding that brought me awake. I sat up and rubbed my face. Bang, 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 bang. It took me a moment or two to realize that there was someone pounding on my front door. I looked at my alarm. It was 3:45 p.m. I'd done it again. I'd slept through the alarm, and if it hadn't been for my as yet unknown visitor, I don't know when I would have awakened. I threw on a pair of jeans and a t-shirt and padded downstairs, still in bare feet. When I opened the door, I was surprised to see Jacob Waters standing on my front porch. Jacob, what brings you here? Can I come in? Sure. I stepped back, dragging the door open as I did. Won't take too much of your time, just a few things. Take all the time you need, Jacob. What's up? He stood just inside the door, head down, looking at the floor. He reminded me of a schoolboy standing before the principal. It ain't easy for me. There's things I think I should be telling you about this place mostly, but other things too. What kind of things? I asked. He turned away as if he couldn't look at me. Dunno. Well, I do know. Just don't know if I should be telling you. That's all. Like I said, ain't easy. He fiddled with the strap of his overalls. Well, why don't you come into the kitchen and have a beer and we'll see if we can sort this out? No, he shouted. I mean, no thank you. I think maybe I made a mistake. I'd better get on going. Hold on. You can't do that. You can't come here, tell me there's things you should tell me, and then hightail it out without an explanation. What's going on? What's got you so spooked? Spooked. He almost coughed the word out. That's it, all right. Spooked. There's things here in this house, on these grounds, that ain't natural, ain't meant to be in this world. I've been coming here. Crash! Something in one of the rooms behind us smashed to the floor. It caught us both off guard and stopped Jacob in mid sentence. I turned around and looked down the hall, wondering what, or who, it could have been. When I turned back, Jacob was closing the door to his pickup truck. I thought about calling out, but watched him drive away instead. After his truck disappeared down the driveway in a cloud of dust and cinders, I closed the door and headed down the hall to find out what had been broken. In the reading room, a glass globe paperweight with a butterfly inside had been smashed. Pieces of glass were sprayed across the floorboards, but the butterfly was sitting on the wall, opening and closing its wings. Under normal circumstances, I would have been surprised. Instead, I just walked over to it and picked it up. It had a sticky feel to it, like it was coated in resin or plastic. I carried it out to the front door and let it go. It fluttered out, then dropped to the ground, its wings folding back up into the position they'd held all these years inside the globe. There was no need for me to check it. I knew that it was dead, that it had always been dead, even when it flew out the door. That was the final straw. I had to find out what was going on here. What was happening and why? I knew inside that the answer was in the building out there, and I knew something else. I knew that I already knew what was in there. I just couldn't remember. It was at that point that I felt it, a deep cold settling over the room, and I knew what that meant. I was in for another confrontation, but I was ready this time. My mind was made up, and nothing was going to stop me from getting to the bottom of all this. I know you're here, God damn it, I shouted, and you know I do. Come on, what have you got for me tonight? There was a deep and booming laugh that filled the entire room. I couldn't tell where it came from. It was coming from everywhere, all around me at once. That's it, I cried. A laugh? That's all you have for me tonight? As soon as the words were out of my mouth, a cold, hard hand slammed across my face. The force turned my head, but I remained in place. I could feel the sting like dry ice on my cheek. I could also feel my anger building. I couldn't ever remember being so angry before. My eyes were burning. They felt like they were going to burst into flames at any moment. Where are you, you bastard? I yelled, but it came out more like a snarling growl than yell. You can't intimidate me, and I'm not leaving. So whatever you're going to do, get on with it and let's see what you've got. I moved across the room, sweeping my hands out from side to side. Nothing moved back. Nothing. But the cold hung on. The booming laughter rang out again and then died away slowly. I was alone again. I was alone, but I was still angry. Angrier than I'd ever been in my life. I couldn't seem to get control of it. I moved swiftly over to one of the floor to ceiling bookshelves and, with one hand, toppled it to the floor. Ah! When the case hit the wooden planks, it split and sent books sliding across the room. The crash of the case and swooshing sound of the books gliding over the wood brought me back to myself, and I could feel the temper easing. I could also feel or sense something else. I still wasn't alone. She was here. I knew it. And I knew something else, too. It wasn't me that had frightened him off. It wasn't me that made him leave. It was she. I circled the room with my eyes squinting, hoping against hope that I'd be able to see her. There were no windows in this room. I saw nothing until my eyes fell on the small mirror that hung on the wall. And there she was, 2 feet to my left. She was looking at me the same way a mother might look at a frightened child. There was deep compassion and tenderness in her eyes. She reached out her hand, and in the mirror I could see where to place mine. Our hands touched. It was cold, but comforting. She waved her other hand over her mouth, telling me that what I already knew. With no windows, she was unable to speak to me. I wanted in the worst way to turn and face her, but without the mirror, I wouldn't be able to see her. Suddenly, it dawned on me. She couldn't speak, but I could. Meet me upstairs, I said. I watched the mirror closely, waiting for her to nod agreement, but she just disappeared. Okay, see you there. I got as far as the doorway before being slammed backward. I let my guard down and paid the price. I tumbled across the floor, literally head over heels, and landed hard against the far wall. Before I could get up, my opponent, the unseen man, had me by the front of my shirt, lifting me off the floor. Whatever it was incredibly strong. I brought my fists down hard on where its wrist should have been, and I was dropped. It had broken its hold, but it still had me at a disadvantage. I couldn't see it, but it sure as hell could see me. Another strong blow landed on the side of my head, sending me staggering sideways. I could feel the rage building up. I could feel my eyes starting to burn again. I spun around, and now the room looked different. It was bathed in a bright red glow, as if I were looking through one of those infrared cameras. And there it was, on the other side of the room. I could see it, could see him. He was hunched down, his knees bent as if he were getting ready to broad jump. Suddenly, he pushed off and came flying across the room at me. I waited. When he was no more than a few feet from me, I moved to my left and he went crashing into the wall. I wasted no time. Swiftly, I reached out and grabbed him by his throat and hoisted him up into the air above my head. His arms were thrashing wildly at mine, trying to break my hold, and his legs were kicking the air. His mouth was open in what appeared to be a soundless scream, and there was surprise on his face. I tightened my grip. It seemed I had gained some kind of strength I never knew I had. With one hand, I held him in the air, jiggling like a puppet. His face was contorted in anger and what I took to be fear. He desperately clawed at my hands and wrists, but it didn't help him. I held him firm. For a moment, I had no idea what to do with him. Then I started toward the door, dragging him along with me. The sound of his pounding and kicking on the walls as we struggled down the hallway echoed in my ears. At the front door, he made one last attempt at breaking free, raking his cold, sharp fingers down my face. I didn't let go. I held him tightly by the throat as I opened the front door, then tossed him out as easily as if I'd been throwing a beer can across the lawn. I watched his reddish shape sail helplessly through the air and slam into an old oak that stood 30 yards from the porch. When he hit the tree, he disappeared in a spray of mist. It was as if he had been a giant water balloon. He was gone for now, but I knew it wasn't the end of it. I turned and dashed up the steps. I was somehow able to take 4 and 5 at a time. When I got to the room, I knew she was gone. I had no sense of her. Shit was all I could think to say. I sat in my desk chair, swiveling from side to side as I attempted to make some sense out of what just happened. Not the encounter, that didn't need understanding. What I couldn't get my mind around was me. Where did I get that strength? How was I able to see him? I had no answers. Adrenaline might be responsible for some burst of strength, but I didn't think so. And adrenaline wouldn't explain the vision. I was more confused than ever, but at the same time, the unexplainable sense that I had known more than I thought sat deeply inside me. And then there was Jacob. What the hell was that all about? Without realizing it, I sat in my chair, lost in thought for the rest of the night. At around 5:10 in the morning, I felt I was ready to try to get some sleep, but I wasn't comforted by that. I was falling into the exact pattern I wanted to avoid. Realizing I needed some rest, but not wanting to sleep all day, I compromised. I set my alarm for noon. Hopefully, that would help get me back on track with the appropriate sleeping hours. Now, that was a short passage today because the next 2 sections will take us to the end of part 1. And the last section is a little longer, so I can fit the last 2 into the next video, which will be on Thursday at 2. And we'll finish up part 1, Weeping Willow. And then on Tuesday, we should move into part 2, The Progeny. I hope you're enjoying these. I realize I am not the world's greatest narrator, and I fumble a little bit, but this is what you get. I'm a writer, not a narrator. So I do hope you're at least enjoying the story, even if I, make some mistakes here and there. And at any rate, until you can join me again on Thursday at the same time, too, I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you stay well, stay healthy, and stay happy. Bye.